Hello there. Memory is a very interesting thing. A lot of people that say they remember XYZ occurring typically end up being wrong, myself included, because I have the memory span of a goldfish. But that all being said, for my last few videos talking about the evolution of meta for Hydro, Dendro, Electro, Cryo, Pyro, and a couple others that you probably haven't seen get uploaded yet, hell, probably haven't even seen half of those get uploaded yet, I've had to take an extensive look back through Genshin's history. And in doing so, I had to look back at a lot of characters that came out during X period of time for Genshin, and a lot of those units are so unbelievably forgettable. So I made a list of names, and I would like to show you some of these characters that I feel like miHoYo and the general player base has entirely forgotten. Now, if you main one of these characters, that's fine. I just want you to know that you main a dementia patient. So let's start with an obvious one. Anybody remember Aloy? The one and only collaboration character that miHoYo has ever released in its entire history, Aloy, the Cryo Bow main DPS character, though calling her a main DPS is very, very generous. If you own Aloy, like me, congratulations, you have one of the rarest characters in Genshin. Actually, you have the rarest character in Genshin, because Aloy only was available for 4 patches, and she was only available for 2 patches if you played on PC. As of late, Aloy has been completely unobtainable, meaning if you have her, congratulations, you have one of the rarest characters in the game. She is the only one that will never, never, never get a rerun. Now, if you don't have this character on your account, do not worry your pretty little head, because Aloy is such a underwhelming character. She's horrible, like one of the worst characters in the game, especially in an era where we had characters like Ayaka and Chongyun to be our cryo DPSs. Aloy is a auto-attack cryo infusion bow character that lays cryo bombs on the floor and has a newt. She also gets a cryo infusion when 4 of her bombs blow up on an enemy, and she gets an attack bonus. Sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? The answer to that should be very obvious. There's a reason why she's on the forgettable list. Aloy is dog shit. The main reason is unfortunately quite comical, and that's that her grenades have to blow up on an enemy 4 times in order for her to get 1 instance of a cryo infusion. However, it is impossible to get this infusion properly because unfortunately there is a slight delay in between how quickly Aloy can proc one of these charges, which doesn't sound that bad until you realize that if you want to actually be able to use Aloy's kit, you're going to need to proc 4 of these in rapid succession. But if you swirl them together, you're not going to get any of the hits, and now you're on a 20-second long cooldown again. So if you want to make the most out of her skill, you're going to need to tread enemies on top of these bombs so that they explode within a proper time frame for you to get a cryo infusion. But unfortunately, your cryo infusion's not going to be that strong because you're not going to be able to efficiently swirl this element to shred res and buff her. This is because most versions of cryo shred that are worth using at least push or move the bombs in some way, meaning you're either going to fling them so far out of the direction of actually being able to get a decent buff and hit the enemies, or you're going to proc all the bombs all at once, the cooldown timer is not going to go off, and you will receive no stacks. There are only 6 bombs present, meaning if by freak incident you throw the grenade cluster, it blows up and 4 enemies are standing right there and they all eat a shot, you're not getting your infusion for another 20 seconds. All this trouble could be worth it if the damage was actually good, which it's not. I tried so hard to make this character good for the background footage, and she is unbelievably boring, bland, and weak. Even with full buffs, the highest damage I was able to get out of her was a little over 20k, which by the way, Yoimiya hits that on regular auto attacks without many buffs at all. So she is horrible. And then on top of that, if you want her to perform optimally, you're going to need to use some of the most valuable team members in the game, such as Farina and Zhangling and Bennett, which most people aren't going to want to do. I feel like I keep saying this, but on top of that, she has no access to Constellation, so there's no way to save her kit and make her something worthwhile. And on top of that, she hasn't been available for over 3 years now, meaning most people probably don't even know she exists because she doesn't show up in the character archive if you don't have her. For that reason, I have her as the poster child for forgettable Genshin Impact units, because not even the game remembers her if you don't already own her. But I can go a step further than that, because there's another character that's also pretty forgettable. You know who Charlotte is? You know, the camera girl that shows up throughout a lot of Fontaine, the reporter who is real goofy and wacky and zany, and she's pretty interesting in the main quest. Yeah, well, she actually got a playable character. Unfortunately, her circumstances are not great, because Charlotte also suffers from a lot of the problems that unfortunately, Aloy has, in the sense that she is a cryo character, cool, that performs a role that is not very needed, cool, that is not very good at said role, and there is another 5-star that does the job better than almost everybody has, that being Chi-Chi. Yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Charlotte is just a slightly better or slightly worse Chi-Chi depending on how you want to look at it. I'm gonna say slightly better, because at least she can use Thrilling Tales, I think. Okay, yeah, she can use Thrilling Tales. She is a Catalyst user. Now, normally this is something that I would cut out of the video and you wouldn't hear me question myself like that, but I feel like that just goes to show how forgettable this character is, so I'm going to be leaving it in. Anyway, the point is, Charlotte is a character that nobody asked. She has a kit that is decent, yes, okay, she does her job, but she doesn't really go that far outside of the realm of her job. She's an attack scaling cryo energy recharge hungry healer, just like Chi-Chi, which is not a very impressive feat. On top of that, she came out at a very inopportune time because she released on the same banner as Farina. And just like that, everybody realized why she was so forgotten. Imagine being a 4-star released at the time of one of the most highly anticipated Archon characters for one of the most powerful elements in your mid. She's easily one of the most forgettable characters. But I got another one, believe it or not. Now this is the part of the video where I say, oh, Eula is the most forgotten character to make people mad because I don't like Eula and people don't like it when I say that. But I'm actually not going to pull that card this time because I feel like Eula is pretty well remembered. She is remembered as that once upon a time really overpowered 1 million damage nuking character that ended up getting power crept over time because of her unfortunate circumstances of her existence, that being physical DPS. And as we all know, in Genshin Impact, a game based around a bunch of elements, if you're a physical DPS, you're probably not going to be doing that much damage. So what happens if you're a buffer for the physical DPS? Well, then you get Mika, easily one of the most forgettable characters in the game. Now, to those of you who don't know, I have been playing Genshin for 4 years. I remember pretty much every banner as it came out in order, and the 4 stars that were on the banner just because I have played the game so much. I had to double check what banner Mika came out in. I always thought Mika was a late version 2 character that released sometime in the patch of version 2.1. Turns out I was wrong. Mika was not released in late 2.0. He was released in the middle of the 3.0 patch cycle on March the 21st of 2023. He is a physical damage buffer, exactly what the world needed. There are just so many awesome physical characters out there that definitely needed that buff. Please tell me you made Eula viable again. No? Yeah, no, he didn't do that either, because unfortunately, Mika doesn't really buff Eula that well. He's actually better suited to other physical carries, like Razor, but he doesn't really work that great with Eula, which is ironic, because if you're going to release a character that buffs the premier physical DPS, and then he doesn't do that, he's not going to be very well remembered. And unfortunately, he suffers from the effect that a lot of 4-star characters do, where they don't really unlock their full buffing potential or use case potential until you get to their C6. That's not saying they can't perform their role, but it's very clear that they're not necessarily optimal in the role until you get C6, like Kujosara, Guru, and other characters like, I don't know, Chevru. She's good at C0, so not her, but you know what I mean. Mika had this same issue. He was borderline unusable on physical teams, to the point where it was kind of a joke. I'm actually on the wiki, or not the wiki, but like the Pride Win for Genshin equivalent of Genshin Impact right now, and there's Mika's page, and it says, Mika is a good healer and can buff the team's physical damage. However, he doesn't deal a lot of good damage, his energy recharge requirements are insanely high so he can burst as often as possible, and he only buffs physical damage, which is useful for teams like Eula, but physical's overall lackluster element, making Mika not worth the pull value, which is insane for this website that is hardcore known to glaze, just be like, yeah, he's not good. Basically, all that to say is that Mika was given a role to perform that he performs very poorly in, and his rememberability suffered because of it. But let's talk about another character who was actually prominent in the story that I personally have forgotten about multiple times. I recently made a video where I talked about how good Hydro was, and I said every Hydro character is at least good, and I forgot about Hydro Traveler, but that's kind of a cop-out answer. But there was another character I forgot about, and that was Sigewinne, or as I like to call her, the 4-star masquerading as a 5-star. Look, I try to be positive on a lot of characters in Genshin, even characters that don't really deserve the positivity. But in this video, when we're talking about forgotten characters, I need to talk about why that is they're forgotten, and it is simply put, Sigewinne is dog shit, okay? She is probably one of the worst limited time 5-stars ever released. And it's okay if you want to argue with me on that, and you can be wrong, but she is legitimately probably the worst limited time 5-star ever released. Imagine releasing a 5-star that works best in slot on Farina teams, when Farina already exists on teams that don't need another character, like Nouvellette teams. And then the trade-off is, oh, well, she can buff hydro damage by 8 whole %. Whippy, we're gonna run to the fucking bank with that 8%, bro. And then, on top of that, you are existing in a meta where Kokomi is already holding it in a stranglehold. She's bad. Sigewinne isn't forgettable because she's just this underwhelming mass for a 4-star like how Mika is. She's forgettable because she's a 5-star that everybody saw and was like, oh, this is the perfect time to save my pools. You know what? I will give Sigewinne credit here. She is the perfect character to rerun, so I have time to save. That is what Sigewinne's purpose is. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. Sigewinne, probably the worst 5-star, probably the most forgettable 5-star. And with that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, like the video, dislike the video, subscribe and support the new channel. See you later.